this is the first channel I've done in a while because I've been writing my book and building my website and so on and so on. So it has been a while, but there is something that I've been wanting to ask because I don't really quite understand, and it's something that I need to clarify in my book because I have it in my book, but I just know that it's not quite right. So the question is, why do dark beings need darkness harvested from others? So during my channels many times now, my guides have said that there is dark beings and they have like these what are they called? Opportunists. These opportunists came into our solar system, not Earthlings, came from the basically aliens, and they have turned the Earth human field into a resource. And the way that I've explained that is that they create a lot of darkness in the human field, and so then we emit like a dark energy, and then they harvest that. But why do they harvest it? How are they using it? What is it? That kind of hasn't really been clear to me. So we're going to chill on that today. All right. So, why do dark beings need the darkness to harvest from others? Let's see what we got. Greetings and thank you for the question. Why do the dark beings require the dark energy that they generate in the human population and then harvest it? What is the purpose? And is it a want or a need? Let us start saying that you are not, as a human being, nourished entirely by food. Yes, your diet is very influential on the outcome of your health. However, you are also nourished energetically via the earth, via the sun, via your galaxy, and ultimately via the One. You are integrated into the energetic lattice, and so some proportion of your food, some proportion of your nourishment is energetic, and this energetic nourishment flows through you because of your connection to Source. This is your birthright, and just by virtue of existing and allowing, and this is important, allowing the flow, then you are nourished in this way. As a third dimensional being, or a third density being, you are nourished in a proportional sense, more by food, less energetically, than you will be when you progressively escalate through the densities. So with the impending ascension to fourth density, your body will be then primarily nourished by your connection to Source, and less so by food. In fact, eventually it will become a choice. Eating will be done not because it is a requirement, but because it is an enjoyable pastime. Because you will be able to extract all of the energy you require to be health and vital from your connection to Source. and food will become a redundancy that is participated in for enjoyment. Now, we start this way because if you were to deny your connection to Source and deliberately shut it down in a sense, then this would untether you from this energetic birthright, your connection to the abundance of the One. And in this scenario, you would need still to be nourished, but you would need to be nourished in other ways. Because if your physical body is not nourished, then it will eventually wither and die, because it will be surviving entirely on the energy reserves within. But they are depleting as you are a finite physical being in this experience. We make a point of saying this because, of course, as we have discussed many, many times, you are the infinite energetic. But in this temporary physical experience, you have an energy reservoir within. And that energy reservoir is continuously depleting. Therefore, you must top it up. And this is done through food, and it is also done just as a matter of existing through the birthright of your connection to Source. If you decided that you did not want to be connected to Source, and you deliberately shut down the connection, which is possible because this is a free will paradigm, and there is being granted so much free will that you even have the capacity to shut down your connection to Source, to the One. The One loves you so much that the One gave itself to you. Your existence is an individuation of the One. You are the One experiencing itself through the unique perspective which is you. Your existence, in the most extrapolated sense, is illusory because you are the One playing with creation to create the illusion of more than one so that it can experience itself. So you exist because the One gave part of itself to you such that you can exist. Such is the love of the One for you. And further, the One has given you the capacity to deny your existence, to deny your connection to the One, to separate yourself entirely from the One, even though you are the One, even though that which you separate from the One is the One. In a sense, you are stealing yourself from the One. This is a possibility. The free will paradigm is so comprehensive. This is a possibility. In this scenario, when you have cut yourself off from your connection to Source, then the question becomes, how do you remain nourished? If you are no longer partaking of the birthright of connection to Source. So you would need an alternative energy source. And now we are getting to the explanation of why these dark beings require a livestock, in a sense, which is what the Earth human field has become. The Earth human field, in a sense, have become a crop or a herd, which they tend to in a way which creates suffering and creates hardship and creates all of the energies of the dark end of the spectrum, such that they can harvest that energy. Because these dark beings have chosen the philosophical path of service to self. And this philosophical path advances itself through the power of darkness. And the power of darkness is most potent when the connection to source is most denied. The reason this is because when there is connection to source, then imbued in this energy, which will become part of your composition, are the emotional states such as empathy, compassion, love, yet if you wish to be the most powerful you can be through your use of darkness, then these qualities are, in a way, a disability. Because as we have discussed before, darkness is a power. And just using a quick analogy for those who have not seen the previous channel, if you have a gang which is selling drugs and they are willing to beat anybody who comes into their turf, they rule supreme. And then a new gang comes in, and this new gang is willing to shoot anybody who tries to sell drugs in this turf they are now trying to claim. Gang A isn't prepared to be violent to the extent of murder. Gang B is, and so they are now the most powerful, and they claim the territory. A Gang C comes into the scenario, and they are willing to murder their opponent, just as Gang B is, but then also murder their opponent's partner, children, parents, entire families. Gang B aren't prepared to go that far into darkness to reign supreme. And so they retreat. And Gang C is now the most powerful. So this is a very basic example, demonstration of how the willingness to go into darkness is synonymous with how powerful an individual or a group is. And on the most expanded extrapolation within the Earth human field, you have the elite that are prepared to send entire nations to war, to be responsible for the death of millions, to deliberately release diseases, to orphan children, to force inoculations of a substance which has been designed to be harmful. This strategy of being dark is what makes them powerful. And to be the most powerful, to be able to commit these heinous atrocities, one cannot have compassion. One cannot have empathy. One cannot have love for those they wish to harm. Because if they did, then clearly there is conflict. There is internal disagreement. So, to eliminate this this ability of compassion and empathy, which is how they see it. This ambivalence. I wish to be most powerful, but I don't wish to be so atrociously, horrifically harmful to those subject to my agenda. This ambivalence, this conflict, is considered to be, to those who use the darkness, to be a disgusting weakness. So, to be as powerful as they can be, then they must deny to the maximum extent their connection to source, because that is the carrier frequency. Source is the carrier frequency of the light and all of the constituents of the light, which is love and its derivatives. And this is a service to others philosophy. When there is service to others, what occurs to others as a result of your actions is of importance and will pull you back from doing what you may have been planning to do when you consider how it shall affect others, because your philosophy is service to others. So, this connection to source must be denied. It must be entirely, completely shut down. Only then can you maximize your power through the darkness. Because now, there is nothing, literally nothing, you will not do to others for the furtherment of your own power, of your own empire. And this is the polarity of the light, of the darkness. The light being service to others, the darkness being service to self. So, as we began this channel, we made the point of saying that when you are connected to source, then part of your nourishment is coming from source. And in the higher densities, it is even more so until eventually there is no requirement for nourishment through food. It is all entirely through your connection to source. But if you have chosen the path of service to self, darkness, and to be most powerful that you can be, cut down entirely your connection to source, then you can see the conundrum. The problem is, how does one be nourished when they are not being nourished through the birthright of connection to source? And if they were to be nourished energetically, what quality of energy do they require? Well, you can see. If they have cut down their connection to source, then they must be parasitic, because they still require energy to sustain the avatar, to continue to exist in the physical plane. There must be some nourishment for the avatar. And as they're not getting it through the birthright of connection to source, then it must be taken from somewhere else. And the way that it is taken is they harvest dark energy from those they have access to. But now you can see here is another layer to this relationship between those who are the dark beings and those they harvest from. As these beings are service to self, and they have chosen the pathway of darkness, then their compatibility is only with dark energy. So although they may have dominion over a population who still have some connection to source, because they are not aware, they are not participants, they have not made the philosophical choice to be of the darkness, service to self. And so they still have some connection to source. These beings who are dark and have taken dominion over them have no use for harvesting from them the light. Harvesting from them energy which has come via the connection to source. This is of no use to them because there is no compatibility with it. They are completely incompatible with the light. And so they then must prepare the population over which they have dominion and wish to draw their energy. They must farm this population to create a crop which they can harvest. And the crop they harvest is the energy of darkness, because this is what sustains them through a host-parasite relationship. The population, in this instance the Earth-human field, is the host. And these dark beings, and also the elite of the human field, also have become service to self, dark, polarity oriented in their relationship with the Earth-human field. And so they also have become parasitic in this way. So, part of this farming technique is that the ground must be turned to create the crop that they desire, the darkness. So, through all systems of control which the elite have access to and coordinate via the guidance of those who they consider to be their gods in a way, those that advise them, these higher intellects, otherworldly higher intellects, which of the elite in this country, they use strategies through the cultural pillars and through the global economic engine and through the global pharmaceutical industry and media and war and all of these industries, these primary industries of the planet which they control, and the cultural pillars. They deliberately create the conditions of suffering so that there is darkness. They create division. They create poverty. They create disease. They create climactic catastrophes. They create all manner of things which they can that create suffering, create division, create death, create a impoverished and painful existence for humanity. Because this state of confusion, of not having access to resources, of being in danger because of conflict, of being in disagreement with the people in your community, even with your children and your partner in your house, this all is generating a rich crop of darkness, which then is harvested parasitically to nourish the elite and also nourish their gods, which are these higher intellects that guide and direct the apex humanity. So, let us add this one more detail to this discussion, or perhaps a couple more details. Let's start by saying that there is a necessity for hierarchy in the darkness. In those that have polarized to the darkness and denied their connection to source, you can see because there is a parasitic relationship with a host, then there must be a hierarchical relationship. They must have dominion over a lower class so that they can parasitically draw the energy which they don't receive through their connection to source. And so when they find a new potential herd, for example, if we put it this way, then what they will do is that they will identify some within the herd that have a propensity, that already have some significant darkness in their energy field, that would be willing to betray the rest of the herd of which they are a part for the reward of elevation to a state of elitism. And if they decide, if they choose to cooperate with these higher intellect beings that have come in to turn the herd into a resource, then this few members of the herd that have agreed to become the apex of the herd, their reward will be dominion over the herd of which once they were a part. And then eventually, those at the apex of the herd will elevate the herd to enough sophistication in technology while suppressing their connection to source, suppressing their wakefulness, so that they can then have part of the herd which they control to go out into the cosmos and find a new herd. And then this relationship again will repeat. However, this time, the higher intellect overlords that come into the herd will be those who are the apex of the Earth human experience, for example. The elevated part of the herd, the apex, the top of the pyramid, now are reaching out to another planet to find another herd to create the same relationship that they have created with those who came here. And so, over time, the expansion of the darkness is this continuation of addition of layers to the hierarchy. And always, every layer of the hierarchy acts as a proxy for that force which is at the very top of the hierarchy. All within the hierarchy, in a way, act as a proxy for the very pinnacle of the hierarchy, which could be many layers above, where you find yourself as part of the herd and which is being parasitically harvested. This hierarchy can, however, be broken. It can, however, be disrupted so that the parasite-host relationship can no longer persist. And the way that this is done is very, very simple. At the moment, and we'll speak about this in the context of what is occurring here in the Earth human field. At the moment, Earth humans are spiritually dichotomous. What is very unique about the Earth human is that in your solar system, let's say that what is very unique about the beings which are indigenous to your solar system is that they are born into a state of spiritual dichotomy, meaning that from their very first moment they do not have any awareness of their connection to the One. Now, this is difficult to explain to beings that have never had awareness of this connection. But for the rest of creation, the default mechanism for the new species to emerge has always been that there is immediate recognition from the very first moment that there is a connection to the One. This is so, however, as you have never had an awareness of this connection, it will be difficult for you to understand. In a similar way that it would be difficult for a fish to understand the concept of water, because it just is. So, this experimental conditions, because it is not a mistake, it is a deliberate experimentation. As the One increases its experiential intelligence, it's the accumulation of experience of itself through all of the infinite individuations of itself, increases its capacity to express the light through the All. And therefore, this is the purpose of evolution, because as there is increased capacity to express the light through the All, then there has to be some mechanism of testing what this new capacity is. And this is evolution. Evolution is this continual testing of the new capacity which is continuously flowing into the One through the accumulation of experience, which is being collected via the All, via every individuation of the One. And so, the evolution which is being experimented in your solar system is this concept of being born into your physical experience with no connection to Source. And the reason this is being done is because if there is a gauntlet which must be passed through the gauntlet of darkness to arrive at the realization, the recognition that you are the One, you are the light. Yet this was not something that you had from your first moment, it was something that you discovered over generations of incarnations on a planet-wide basis. Then when you eventually return to the light and realize that you have always been incarnated from the light, always been connected to the One, and you have the rich experience of knowing what it means to be polarized to the darkness because of the confusion of not understanding you're connected to the light, and the untold suffering that you experienced because you were unaware of your connection to the light. Then when you eventually do come to the light, it is inevitable that the philosophical path you will choose will be the philosophical path of service to others, because you understand through experience the suffering which is incurred, and the pain, and the dread, and the hardship, when there is a polarization to the darkness. Because in humanity's experience, there has been this spiritual dichotomy where you are of the darkness and you are of the light. For example, I love that person, I hate that person. This is only possible in a being which is spiritually dichotomous. And so there has been this mingled state for all of humanity throughout its history of being both of the light and of the darkness. But then eventually finding the light will result in the awakening, an ascension to a non-dualistic state where you are entirely of the light, which will be the revelation, ending your experience in third density and beginning your existence in fourth density. In the known universe, most conflict arises from disagreement between those who are service to self and those who are service to others. Much of the suffering, much of the conflict and death and all manner of darkness are a result of the pathway of service to self. Now, this is not a condemnation, because there is free will. This is a free will paradigm, and the one wishes to experience it all, so that it can know itself experientially to completion. And so therefore, an investigation of the darkness is part of this experience, is part of this process. So there is nothing wrong with choosing that path. However, through the accumulation of experience via the all, the experiential intelligence of the one has reached a point where the philosophical path of service to self, the investigation of the darkness, is less of a required ingredient to the continuation of the accumulation of experience by the one. And therefore, there is now the opportunity that all of creation can shift to this one philosophical path, which is service to others. And so, the purpose of the solar system experiment is it possible for a collection of beings in the one race, for example, the humanity race, Earth humans, to find the light if they are born without any recognition of their connection to the light? And if so, then when they find the light, will they take on the philosophy of service to others? If this proves to be so, which it is believed will be so, then this will be, or this could be, the new default mechanism for the creation of all species in existence. All new species coming into creation will, by default, be born into a state of no recognition of their connection to the One. So they will pass through this gauntlet of darkness to arrive at the realization they're connected to the One, and therefore follow the philosophical path of service to others. And through this mechanism, the philosophical path of service to self will, expectedly, over time, disappear. And much of the conflict and hardship and so on, which has arisen from that philosophical path, will vanish from existence. So this is a very grand experiment. And the implications, if it is successful, are massive, are paradigm shifting. So there is much attention on what is occurring here. But the Earth human isn't the first version of this experiment, because it is a solar system-wide experiment. So this experiment has already played out on Venus, on Saturn, on Mars, and now on Earth, and next will be Uranus. So there is more detail regarding those other experiments, but we won't go into it here. So the point of that long explanation was to point out that there is a shift of the human field towards the light. There is the purging of the darkness. There is the human field realizing that the wars, the famines, the poverty, the climate problems, the viral pandemic, all of these things are being deliberately engineered to make us the emitters of dark energy. This is the realization which is occurring on planet Earth. And so the recognition through this understanding is, well, this darkness I hold, it's not my darkness. It's the darkness which is a result of the lies I've been told, of the way that I've been impoverished, of the way that I've been made ill. It's not my darkness, it's darkness which has been foisted on me so that I become a radiant beacon of darkness which can be harvested by the parasites. And so then there is this recognition, this darkness isn't me, I am not the darkness, purge the darkness. And when purge the darkness, what am I then? I am the light, polarized to the light, become beings of light. And when you become a being of light, you no longer embody any darkness because you have released it, you've purged it. Now you become a radiant beacon of the light. And this energy is completely incompatible with those who are feeding themselves parasitically from you. They cannot harvest the light. They can only harvest the darkness. And so if you are being completely, entirely of the light, then you are now something which they cannot exploit at all. And so when this happens, as it will, on a global basis, then those who have been made powerful through the darkness, which they harvest from you and all of the rest of the human field, will no longer have a source of energy which they can parasitically harvest. And when this occurs, they will wither. They will crumble and wither and become unsustainable because they have disconnected to themselves from source, and without the harvestable energy from the human field, they will over time cease to exist. And the overlords, the gods of the apex humanity, these overlords will retreat and leave the planet because they will be repelled by the light, because it is so incompatible to who they are that they will not be able to stay in the vicinity without great discomfort. And so they also shall be gone. And this will be the complete transition to the destiny of the earth, which is to be a beacon of the light. Unprecedented in how strongly it shines into the cosmos, because those who are inhabiting the earth human, which will be awakened to be the humanity being and sentience of the earth, will have an understanding of what it means to be the light, which is unprecedented, because they have transitioned through the gauntlet of darkness on their journey to realizing they are the light, connected to light, always been part of the one. But this understanding will have been derived through experience, which for most of creation is impossible, because from the very first moment they are connected to the one. They don't have an experience of what it means to not be connected to the one and then find the one. And therefore the profundity of the human experience will make them a beacon of light unprecedented. And inevitably, the human field will become guides, mentors, advisors, and so on to other regions of the cosmos because of this unique quality of wisdom. So, we shall leave it there. We love you, and we are glad for this opportunity to bring clarity to that which you wish to put into your book. And we hope from this discussion you now have had an author's epiphany as such, and can incorporate this into your book prior to its release. We love you, we thank you, and we'll speak to you soon.